Good morning. Welcome to morningcoffeebeans.com. Thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for sharing and commenting and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Today I want to share a very special story with you. It's very dear to my heart because it is about my Vietnam soldier's story. My husband was a cook in the Vietnam War. One morning, after praying for God's protection for himself and his fellow comrades, he felt he should go into the mess hall early to prepare his baking duties. He had to convince the head cook to allow him to do his work during the evening meal. Normally, he started his baking after dinner and worked late while the soldiers stayed in the lighted building to do their letter writing and to play cards. However, they all had to leave early when he closed the building for the night. Next to the mess hall was the enlisted men's club where movies were shown once a week, but it also closed early because one of the movie reels was missing. The soldiers were very frustrated and angry when they had to go back to their barracks so early. Right after they were all settled into their bunks, a 155mm rocket was dropped. The mess hall and the enlisted men's club was destroyed. I didn't know my husband when he was in service, but a few years after the war ended, we met and married. Even though I wasn't part of his life during his tour in service, the pain he carried with him as a result of the Vietnam War became a part of my life too. We didn't talk much about his service in the Army before we married, and today, 48 years later, I am still learning the things he saw, the things he felt, and the scars he has in his heart. The first time we watched fireworks together, I could tell he was tense, but didn't understand until later that the popping of the fireworks reminded him of the gunfire in the jungles of Vietnam. Sudden loud noises, especially the whirring of a helicopter, would cause him to flinch. He always liked to sit with his back against the wall so he could see what was in front of him. He learned in the war that it wasn't safe to not know what was around you at all times. Whenever war stories were played at the movies or at home, I didn't know whether it was a good idea for him to watch them. I was concerned that it would make him relive that time in his life again. But he always wanted to watch the war movies. It was as though he was looking for a story that validated what he remembered as being a soldier. He seemed to have found that story that he was looking for in a movie we watched, the 2016 film Hacksaw Ridge. The true story of Private Desmond Doss, who won the Congressional Medal of Honor despite refusing to bear arms during World War II on religious grounds, brought back memories hidden deep into his heart. Doss was drafted and ostracized by fellow soldiers for his pacifist stance, but went on to earn the respect for saving 75 men without carrying a gun. My husband was a conscientious objector. When he was drafted, he was a young minister, but did not yet have his educations or credentials to be a chaplain. He too was treated very badly by his fellow soldiers because he refused to carry a weapon. However, many men would have been killed the night their mess hall was blown up had he not obeyed the voice of God by going in early and closing the building before it was destroyed by enemy fire. Another war movie that touched him so deeply was We Were Soldiers Once, based on the best-selling book We Were Soldiers Once and Young. This compelling war drama depicts the true story of the first major battle between the United States and the North Vietnamese forces. It is a film about uncommon valor and nobility under fire, loyalty among soldiers, and the heroism and sacrifice of men and women, both home and abroad. The war scenes in this film were very graphic. However, it wasn't the bloody battles that brought tears to his eyes as much as the last two scenes. One of them, a mother pulling her children to the other side of the airport when the veterans came home, and another of a soldier weeping after the war was over because he survived and his friends did not. Ironically, one of the most agonizing parts of the Vietnam War for many soldiers, including my husband, was the return home, the long, shameful walk through the airport as strangers shied away in quiet judgment. The other agony is much like the 9/11 survivors' experience. They lived when the people they loved and knew did not. The relief and the guilt of surviving will haunt their memories for a lifetime, soldiers and civilians alike. As I watch these movies with my husband, I think of how young he was when he went to war, only 21. Still, so many years later, the sounds of battle are only a nightmare away in his mind. When I talk to Vietnam veterans, other than my husband, the thing that seems to haunt them the most is why so many had to die. What were they fighting for? Lieutenant General Harold Moore and war correspondent Joseph Galloway wrote the book We Were Soldiers Once and Young. Moore said he was sent to Vietnam to lead his men into battle, but in the end they fought only to save each other. My husband is Chaplain Monroe Landers now, and he continues to serve people and his comrades at the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, in Marion, Virginia. I watch sometimes as the different war veterans meet each month. They're still saving each other as they talk of when and where they served, their experiences, their pain, and their survival. And they're still working together to help our widows and orphans and dependents of needy or disabled veterans, and they promote Americanism by means of education or patriotism and the service to our local communities. This is a really powerful story talking about the men and women who served in service, and sometimes they're sitting right beside us. They're listening to the same things that we're listening to, but they have stories deep into their heart that they maybe have not shared yet or cannot share, and their pain is something that we don't even understand. But I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope that you will support our veterans, the ones from long ago, our World War II veterans we still have, our Vietnam veterans, our veterans of different ages who served in different wars. I hope you support them and appreciate them today. And thank you. I appreciate you listening to my story. And again, I appreciate you commenting and sharing and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much.